Great. And just going to adjust a couple settings here. While we wait, if you want to say hello in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know if there's any ice on your lake. Okay. Great. Some more people are joining us. And let's see, Brittany, I hope this doesn't mess things up. I'm going to make you the host.
Okay.
And that way, while I'm presenting, you'll be able to admit people who are joining the waiting room.
Okay.
So you'll see that just in the participant list, and then you can admit them.
Okay, got it.
You got it? Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'll get you to keep an eye on the participant list, and you should get a notification whenever someone joins the waiting room.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Looks like we got Blake and Linda from Wizard, Walt from Maya Tan, saying there's definitely ice out there. Wizard Lake is iced over. We actually had one sampling event this morning out at Half Moon Lake. I don't know if Richard is here. I don't see him. John from Gull Lake, Lisa from Grand Cache. How much ice was on Half Moon Lake today, Brittany or Kirsten?
It was about 8 inches, so pretty good.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, not bad. Half Moon Lake is really small and sheltered, though. So
He said that ice was on around November 16th, so a little bit maybe earlier than others, or maybe, I don't know if anyone in the chat, if their ice came on that quickly as well.
I see. And Kirsten or Brittany, are you still seeing the presentation screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, cool. So I think we'll go ahead and get started then. So we just have set aside the lunch hour to talk about our winter program. So thanks everyone who joined us this afternoon. If you don't know me, if you're new to the program or new to ALMS, my name is Brad. I'm the Executive Director here at the Alberta Lake Management Society, and I'll be running us through the short presentation today. I'll also be introducing some of our team who's here as well in a couple slides. So also I should acknowledge the Alberta Conservation Association, who is funding the Lake Keepers, both the summer and winter components of that program today. So the agenda for today, just a quick background on the winter monitoring program, some highlights from last year, a couple points about changes that you'll see to the 2023-2024 program. Quick run through the protocols if you're not familiar with those, some next steps and polls and questions. So we'll try to keep it just to the hour here. So for those of you who don't know the Alberta Lake Management Society, we are a small charity based here in Edmonton with a goal of promoting the understanding and management of lakes, reservoirs, and their watersheds. And a lot of the work that we do is focused on collecting data to improve our understanding of lake functions and reporting annually on the state of our lakes. So the winter program is really interesting because there's a huge data gap, as you'll see, and this program has been really important for filling that data gap. So today we're joined as well by Brittany Onesic, our program manager, and Kirsten Latender, our program technician. And Kirsten Perrin, who's really been coordinating a lot of the Lake Keepers program, is away right now. She'll be back next week and jumping back into the coordination of a lot of this work. So just want to thank Brittany and Kirsten for all their help with getting today's session prepared and also for helping me run the session today. So winter monitoring is really designed to address a few different topics. Obviously, climate change related to ice on, ice off dates, snow cover, quality of ice, things like this. That's all recorded in the sampling design. Impacts from road salts, measuring things like chloride concentrations under the ice, dissolved oxygen conditions over the winter season, which is really critical for fish habitat. Understanding the connectivity between summer water quality conditions and winter water quality conditions and vice versa. There's been some really interesting results so far over the past 5 years related to cyanobacteria growth under the ice. You can see in the bottom middle photo here examples of a toxic cyanobacteria bloom that was growing in layers as the ice formed. This one, I believe, was from either Fork Lake or Machiaw Lake. And then we're also collecting isotope samples to understand groundwater connectivity and water balances in lakes. So lots of information collected through this program. And again, this is a huge data gap. As far as we can tell, this program already over 5 years has collected more winter lake data than we have in the province over the last 3 decades. So this is really exciting for us to explore this data and to start asking new questions about lake function. So we're really running this program as a citizen science program, so equipping members of the public and training them to collect water quality data and samples. This was just piloted in 2018. The original goal was to focus on tapping into that group that's already out on the ice, drilling holes and fishing, the ice anglers, connecting with them and having them collect water quality samples and data for us. But we've seen great involvement from general lake stewards who aren't even ice fishing. They're just interested in the water quality. So a big shout out to everyone who's just excited about doing something in the winter, getting out on the ice and collecting some data. That's been tremendous. Involvement and reception of this program. Briefly, we have all the materials, all the equipment you should need to participate, including augers, if that's something that you need. We are letting the participants really select the sample sites, although we're here to help you if you want to select, say, multiple sample sites on a large lake. But really, we want folks to sample at the locations that are important to them. And we don't have a good sense of ice quality on a lot of these lakes, so we also want people to be selecting sites that are safe to sample on. Again, funding from Alberta Conservation Association, and all of the winter data is being uploaded into the data stream open source data portal. And the data is also being reported on in an annual report, which you can find on our website. So this is the report from last season. It's available at Winter LakeKeepers on our website. You can check that out. If you haven't already, we'll just run through a couple key points. Last year, you can see on the bottom here, 2022-2023 was our largest year yet. We had 70 lakes and 99 sampling locations, compared to, say, 2018 when we only had 10 lakes and 10 locations. So the program has grown every year. 172 sampling events just last year, nearing the 200 mark, which is really exciting. If we can get to 200 this year, that'd be amazing. We had samples as far north as Wadman Lake and as far south as Beauvais Lake. So a really good geographic span of the province as well. Wadman Lake actually, I believe, had the greatest ice thickness as well at almost 120 centimeters of ice. In general, we're seeing a huge range of nutrient conditions, chlorophyll conditions, very similar to the range that we would see in the summer season as well. Really high values in some of those lakes that are shallow, just east of Edmonton, that have experienced a lot of evaporative loss. So you can see Cooking West and Cooking East. even Telford Lake out in Leduc, very, very high values of total phosphorus. But we're also seeing high values in lakes like Skeleton North, which is experiencing some really unusual winter water quality conditions with significant cyanobacteria blooms under the ice all season long. And you can see that here in the chlorophyll A, that green pigment that we measure in lakes. Some lakes have very significant biological productivity under the ice and all season long. Again, there's Skeleton North right near the top there, averaging between 50, 55 micrograms per liter of chlorophyll across 4 sampling trips. And cyanobacterial toxin samples that we've collected as well have been quite significant, enough to result in a summer recreational water advisory, but all winter long. So some interesting results. Definitely check these out in the report. Our previous program manager, Caleb, pulled that report together and has included a lot of new types of figures and is presenting a lot of different parameters as well. So one example would be the way that we are now presenting our temperature and dissolved oxygen concentrations. You can see them presented here as a heat map for each lake. And if there's multiple sampling trips on those lakes, then we present those all. For example, at Calling Lake, we have samples from January, February, and March. And you can see a warming at the bottom of the lake in March and a depletion of oxygen as well at the bottom of the lake toward the end of the season. So check out these new figures. Let us know what you think, if you like how these display the data and if you find them easy to interpret. We want to make sure that we're constantly improving the way that we're doing this reporting. And with more samples collected every year, we're going to have to start getting creative in how we're presenting this data. Another good example of new figures that we've included this year are the way that we're presenting ice and snow thickness on a graph like this at the bottom of your screen. We have snow thickness in purple, we have white ice thickness in gray, and then clear ice thickness in blue. So with repeat sampling events, we'll be able to track those snow and white ice and clear ice thickness across the season. And that obviously has important implications for how much light is able to penetrate through the ice. And we'll see that actually in our next slide here, where we've been conducting some continuous measurements on Pigeon Lake, including light penetration. So thanks to Don Davidson, I didn't see if he's on the call today, but he's been involved with sampling Pigeon Lake at multiple locations and involved in installing this remote sensor array. So at 1 meter, 3.5 meters, 6 meters, and 8 meters, we've suspended probes that are measuring parameters like oxygen, temperature, and light. And this was deployed last year on December 1st, and then we retrieved it on April 12th. And these sensors are able to take readings at regular intervals, such as every 30 minutes. And then we get these nice figures of continuous data all winter long. It looks a little bit messy to read, but if you look at the top left figure on your screen, we've got the 1 meter, 3.5 meter, 6 meter, and 8.5 meter readings for temperature. And as you move from left to right across the screen, you're moving later in the season. And we can see a lot of warming throughout the water column as we move toward April. And then similarly, the figure on the right-hand side is your oxygen readings. And we do see depletion of oxygen throughout the season, but some significant daily fluctuations in oxygen as well, which is really interesting, maybe tied to biological productivity occurring under the ice. Another interesting result is that we're able to detect light readings even as deep as 8.5 meters throughout the winter season. So we know that there's light penetration throughout the water column, which may be really critical for the growth of cyanobacteria and algae, especially in the springtime as light increases at those deep depths. So we do plan to install the remote sensor array again this year. It's just that the season's been a little bit delayed. So we certainly weren't out on Pigeon on December 1st, but possibly next week we'll be able to get out and install that new tool. I should say too, if there are questions, you can type them in the chat, and Brittany and Kirsten will help me flag those. And if they're urgent, then we can certainly address those right away. We also had a good time out in Banff National Park. We visited Minnewanka Lake and also Barrier Lake. But Minnewanka was a fun one because it's over 60 meters. At least the sample site we went to was just over 60 meters deep. And this is a reservoir which was very, very well mixed from top to bottom. You can see here water temperature was very consistent throughout the water column, as well as dissolved oxygen, which was well oxygenated, even as deep as 65 meters. So we're hoping to get out this year again to the park. We've submitted a research permit, and a big thanks to Wendell Koning, who's been helping to facilitate that work. This is all in the most recent report as well. So if you are looking to participate in the 2023-2024 program, we're still hoping for monthly sampling events if possible. We'll also take one-off sampling events from lakes that you visit. Some people just go out to a lake once to go ice fishing, and we would still love to get that data. So certainly not required, but we are encouraging the monthly sampling. And if possible, repeating sampling events at previous year's sample locations. On some of our larger lakes, like Wizard Lake, Wabamun Lake, we do have folks collecting multiple samples at different locations across the lake. So from different basins or something like this, just to get better coverage of the lake and see if there are differences across the lake. If you do need help figuring that out, just let us know and we can help you make those decisions. There's a few ways to get involved as well. We don't want the hold times on the samples to be a limitation to your involvement. So if you're not able to return samples to us really quickly, then we would give you what we call the protocol 1, the P1, and that has samples that are good for a couple weeks. So you can hang on to those and return them when you're able to. But other options, which involve returning samples within up to 24 hours, or even 3 days, allow you to collect some more parameters, including that chlorophyll A, that green pigment in the lake. So the bottle sets that we provide to you, we'll make sure that they're appropriate for when you're able to return these samples to us. Just a quick rundown of what's involved with this. Make sure that you are completing our online safety quiz. If you've completed it once, then you don't have to redo it. But if you're new to the program and you've not completed the safety quiz and informed consent form, we'll make sure that you do that before you head out. And that's available on our website at Winter LakeKeepers. So it doesn't take long, but we do ask that you get 100% on the safety quiz. Otherwise, we'll make you retake it and make sure you understand the safety and the risk involved with winter sampling. We'll also get you to fill up a hot water bottle before you head out and make sure that the weather and ice conditions are appropriate before you head out. There are different ways to record your locations. GPS units come in different shapes and sizes. So we've got degree, minutes, seconds, decimal degrees, degree, decimal, minutes. The easiest way might be to, let me just show you here. And let me just check with Brittany. Am I still screen sharing Wabamun Lake now?
Yep. Yeah, we can see it.
Great. So if you know roughly where you sampled and you just go into Google, you search Wabamun Lake, for example, let's say we sampled just out front of the Sundance area here. If you right click on the location and click what's here, this is going to bring up the decimal degrees GPS coordinates, and you can record these values on your data sheet, or we can help you do that. So again, if I click what's here, down here, we've got the decimal degrees version of that. So if you need any help with that, please let us know. If you've got a smartphone, there's easier ways to do that, of course. But we can always help with this, and we want to make sure that we're getting the right locations recorded for the reports. Okay, and Brittany, am I back on the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, thanks so much. We do ask that you calibrate the probes that we provide to you. The probes are able to measure dissolved oxygen and temperature, and they do require a daily calibration because they are dependent on the daily barometric pressure readings. And if you are traveling quite far within a day, say you sample up by Lac La Biche and then you head back and you want to sample again, if you're traveling great distances, you should also be recalibrating. But if you're on one lake, sampling across one lake, multiple locations, you just need to do a daily calibration. This is what the probe looks like. It comes with a gray sleeve, a metal guard, and then the probe tip is the very tip of that probe there. The way that you prepare the calibration is remove the gray sleeve, remove the metal guard, and dab the top of the probe tip to remove any water droplets. We provide Kim wipes, which won't scratch up the probe if you're dabbing gently there. Then you can put everything back on and let it sit for 5 minutes. There's also a yellow sponge within the end of the gray sleeve, and that should be wetted before your calibration. We also provide you with tap water to wet that sponge. Once you've done that, you can turn your unit on. There's a simple power button there. There's a calibration button, so that's pretty simple. We're choosing optical dissolved oxygen. That's what ODO stands for. We're also calibrating the percentage of dissolved oxygen as opposed to a specific concentration. We can't create a specific concentration within the probe sleeve, so we're going to choose the percent saturation. Once we do that, we want to let the probe stabilize, and we'll also record what the barometer value is on your field sheet. And that again is presented to you on your probe unit. Once you've waited a minute and allowed your probe to stabilize, you can accept the calibration and just exit out until you're back to that home screen. Are there any questions? If I just pause briefly, you can unmute yourself if you do have a question as well. Okay. There are a number of environmental measurements we'll be recording on our field sheets, including those related to ice thickness, the bottom depth, the temperature, things like this. So ice thickness, we've provided you with a new tool this year to measure ice thickness. Some people had kind of rigged up their own devices. This year we purchased these snow thickness measuring devices from MEC, and we've added a bracket to the end of those so you can hook that onto the bottom of the ice. The device is collapsible, so it will fit nicely into your sampling kit, and you can unfold it, hook it onto the bottom of the ice, and read the thickness of the ice really easily. So we hope you guys find these new tools helpful. Let us know how it goes using those. And then we're also going to try and record the different types of ice that are present. So whether that's the white ice, that opaque ice versus the clear ice. And these depths of ice will fluctuate throughout a season as ice and snow melt and refreeze. So it won't be the same every time, but do your best to try and measure the white ice and the clear ice. And you can do that just visually by looking through your augured hole. But really, we're going to be measuring in total the sum of the white and clear ice. And you can see here, we want to know both the total ice thickness and the white ice thickness. And we would just subtract them to find out what the clear ice thickness was. Snow coverage, there are different types of snow coverage. It's never just, well, sometimes it is just complete coverage or bare, but in other cases it's partial with snow drifts, it's partial with slush present, complete snow coverage but slush present. Yeah, Rick says better tie some cord onto that thickness ruler. Great point. We did that, Rick. So there is a loop of rope on the end of the ice thickness measuring tool, which we ask that you loop that around your hand before you take your measurement. So good point, Rick, and thank you to Kirsten for doing that last week. So there are different ways to record your snow cover. So just be mindful of that piece. You can also record odor if it is present under the ice, and you can also just describe the water clarity in your own words. So cloudy, contains particles, clear, algae in the water, all that good stuff. We do provide you with a tape and weight to measure the bottom depth. The probe itself is often not going to be heavy enough to really feel when you're on the bottom of the lake. And so use that tape and weight to figure out where the bottom is before you start taking your probe measurements. And then all of your probes are marked with colored duct tape. And that's because the depth is not displayed on the handheld screen. And so we want you to use the markings on the cord to figure out what depths you're at. And they're color coordinated for different increments. There are some bottles that we'll have you fill, and some of these bottles do require preservatives. We also provide long shoulder length gloves to reach down into the augured hole and to collect your sample. We don't want the sample just from the very surface of the hole. We would like you to reach down as far as you can there just to avoid any debris that might be kicked into the hole. Another option is to drill two separate holes, one for your bottom depth measurement and your probe readings. Both of those are going to disturb the bottom of the lake. And a couple meters away, you can auger a separate hole and collect your water quality samples. That might just help us prevent any contamination from the bottom getting into your collected samples. The preservatives that are required can either stain your skin or burn your skin, so please make sure you're wearing the proper gloves and even safety goggles when you're adding those preservatives. And if it's unstable out on the ice, you can always preserve them right when you get back to your vehicle if you need to. There's a few different bottles, a small bottle for isotopes, a bottle for preserved phytoplankton, including some preservative for that, which is the one that could stain your skin. So make sure again that you're wearing gloves. If you're participating in the program that requires you to bring the samples back on a more frequent basis, then you might have bottles related to conductivity, pH, chloride, nitrate, nitrite, dissolved nutrients like TDP, organic carbon, and chlorophyll. So you'll get a different bottle set depending on how frequently you can bring those samples back to us. Some people will be provided with a chlorophyll A filtering kit, and this really extends the shelf life of your samples. So if you are one of the people who received the chlorophyll A filtering kit, then we do have all of those instructions in the manual and on our website. And if you're coming to our office to pick up a kit, we'll walk you through all of those steps as well, just to make sure that you're comfortable with that. I think a lot of the folks in the South, David True, have been filtering their own samples, Beauvais Lake filtering their own samples. So if you need a refresher on that, just let us know. But that process really hasn't changed from last year. Other than we'll ask that you record the color of the filter paper once you're done filtering. For shipping logistics, we do cover the cost for all of the shipping, and we'll provide you with our Purelator account to do so. Most samples should be kept within the fridge and not frozen. The only samples that should be frozen are probably those filter papers if you are participating in the filtration. Otherwise, try to just keep them cold, not frozen. You will be provided with a sampling manual that has an equipment list, and we'll check that list before we send out your gear. But if you're wondering what's supposed to be in your kit, definitely take a look at the list here. And if you're missing something, we'll get that to you. Field sheets are going to look fairly similar to what you've seen last year with just a few minor updates. So again, just some changes to the program. Consider drilling 2 holes in the ice for your bottom depth and profile measurements versus your water chemistry. Record what type of auger you're using for us. Record the color of the filter paper. The field sheet will walk you through all of those. We've got the new ice thickness tool. We want to hear how that works for everybody. And then we're going to use a shared inbox to manage correspondence related to the Winter LakeKeepers program. So feel free to use lakekeepers@alms.ca, and that email will go to all of the ALMS staff so that we can make sure we're not missing anything. If one of us happens to be out or on vacation or something like that, then the program can keep going. So that's going to be the new email address, but again, all of us will be getting those emails and responding to them. We don't have an unlimited number of sampling kits, so we're going to do our best to coordinate the sampling requirements of everyone across the province. So please just give us a heads up when you think you'll need a kit. We'll build a Google Calendar out of when we have requests for kits. So I know some folks, like the folks at Wobbleman, sometimes put the dates, sampling dates in the calendar well in advance, and that's great. We can work around that if we know what the sampling dates are going to be. So bear with us as we coordinate almost 200 sampling events with limited numbers of kits, but we'll make sure everyone is able to sample as they'd like to. Again, we'll be flexible with the protocols that we provide you with. So if you're concerned about you're going on a long ice fishing trip up north and you're not sure when you'll be back, we'll make sure that the sample bottles we give you will be good for that length of time. Again, we'll let you select the site, sampling site that you'd like to select, but we would love to see some consistency across years if possible. And we have all those GPS coordinates stored, so if you need a refresher of where you sampled last year, we're happy to do that. And then, of course, monthly sampling if possible. So if you're interested in participating, definitely send an email to lakekeepers@alms.ca. That's the only way we're going to know that you want to sample. So please send us a request. Let us know when you're planning to go out. Just be mindful that the ALMS office is closed over the Christmas break. So that's the week of the, someone might have to help me out here. I think
December 22nd,
okay.
Which I think starts on the, it's the Friday. Yeah, December 22nd. I think actually that might be our last day, but so basically, yeah, the week of the 25th up until January 2nd.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Brittany. Yeah, so the office is closed then. It doesn't mean that you can't sample during that time, but if you have time-sensitive samples, we won't be there to receive them. So we'll have to make sure that the timing of any sampling during that week is maybe toward the end of that week so we can receive them early in the new year. So just be mindful of that and respectful of that short break that we've got just over Christmas. If you need an auger, we do have 2 augers. We have a handheld auger, which can be attached to our power drill, and you can auger that way. Or we also have the battery-powered auger, the ion auger, which we can lend out as well. If you need one, those make quick work of the ice. So those are quite nice to work with if you don't have a tool yourself. Okay. I'm going to put up a poll now. So this is the fun interactive part of today. Let's see if I can get that going here. So just a few questions for you all. Actually, Brittany, I'm going to need you to launch the poll. And Owen, yes, you can use all lowercase for the email address.
Here we go on poll 1.
Okay, great. So everyone should see, I think, 5 questions. And you can just go ahead and click your answers there. And then we'll give it a minute, Brittany, and then once responses stop coming in, we can share those results. The questions are related to how frequently you plan to sample, how frequently you think you can get the samples back to us, if you need an auger, those sorts of things. How's it looking there, Brittany?
We're almost there. We got 13 right now out of 18.
Okay, that's not bad.
You want to end that? Okay, 14. Here we go.
Yeah, and that includes like me and Kirsten. So, okay,
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
looks like most people are planning to return samples within 3 days. That's great. So we can provide those folks with both the chlorophyll filtration kit and the enhanced bottle set. A couple of you are within 2 weeks. That's great. How frequently, monthly, and sporadically? Most people are able to do repeat monthly sampling. That's really cool. Sporadically is really nice too. I think that's how we get some of these lakes that have never been sampled before. Almost half of you are focused on one lake, which is really great. That's, I think, some of our Lake Watershed Stewardship Group partners. But we've got some folks who are planning to do more than 5 lakes, which is amazing. So yeah, we'll support any number of lakes you think you can get to. Almost 60% of folks have not participated in this program before, which I'm really glad to see some new folks learning about this work, and really happy to see some repeat volunteers as well. Probably a lot of our repeat volunteers didn't come to the session today because they have done it for almost 5 years. And looks like maybe a couple of you might need to borrow an auger, so we'll try to get that coordinated as well. But happy to do that, and we do try to keep the blades quite sharp throughout the winter season. We'll get those sharpened a few times. So it should work pretty easily for you. Okay, great. So thanks for running that poll, Brittany. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about anything we've reviewed so far today? Everyone knows to email that LakeKeepers email. Any general comments about the quality or thickness of ice on any of the lakes that you're in? Have people been out ice fishing or anything yet? What a polite, quiet group today.
Well, how thick is the ice? Is there any information at all?
Yeah, well, we heard Half Moon Lake sample today and they got 8 inches.
8 inches? Okay.
Yeah.
Lake Isle, it's at least 6 inches thick.
Okay. Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Had a few ice fishermen on the lake already.
Wow.
Lots of clear ice this year.
Yeah, it is. I've got a big skating rink and it's quite clear. Yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah, a bit of an unusual year, but the data will be interesting because of that, I think, especially with minimal snow cover in a late season. So, yeah, feel free to request your kits once you're comfortable with the ice thickness and feel safe going out there. If it's not safe in December on your lake, then no worries, we'll just get started in January. And hopefully it's thick enough in January. Anything I missed, Brittany or Kirsten, that you wanted to add in there?
No, I think you got it, Bradley.
Yeah, nothing I can think of either.
Okay, thanks guys. Okay, if you do decide you have questions after today's session, again, just give us a call or send lakekeepers@alms.ca an email and we'll help you out. And if you're out sampling and you run into questions, you can always call the office and there's often someone there who can help you out. We all kind of know the protocols for this program. So there it is. Yeah, thanks, Brittany, for throwing that number in there. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
just a
gonna
question.
go. Yeah,
The ice at Wadman is about 6 inches thick right now, and there's some open water, but we're hoping that by the last or second last week, we'll be able to get out. But just a question: if we were to sample on the 21st and pick up the kit on the afternoon of the 20th, and then have it back to you in the afternoon of the 21st, is that going to work?
yeah, we should still be around on the 21st for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So we can arrange to get you that kit in time and have that ready, and then we'll make sure that someone's around on the 21st too.
Thanks.
Yeah, good idea, Stan. Okay, great. So I'm gonna pause the recording now, or stop the recording now. Or actually, Brittany, do you mind stopping the recording? I threw the host